Hello everyone, I'm very excited to welcome you today. Today, we'll be exploring an important topic that I believe will really interest you. The title of our presentation is Innovating for the Future, with the subtitle, Strategies and Trends to Watch. Over the next few minutes, we'll cover key concepts, recent trends, and practical strategies that can help us stay ahead. Let's get started. Let's take a closer look at the key points on this slide. First, we have questions, which remind us to stay curious and think critically about the material. Then, comparison is a useful tool to understand similarities and differences, especially when analyzing poetry or themes. Moving on, poetic devices are essential because they help us interpret and appreciate the artistry in poetry, like metaphors, similes, and alliteration. Next, we see amanda. This could refer to a specific poem or poet we're studying, so it's important to understand her work and style. The central idea of the theme ties everything together. It's about grasping the main message or lesson the poem conveys. The term assignment highlights that there will be tasks to apply what we've learned, so staying attentive is key. The introduction to the lesson sets the stage, giving us an overview of what to expect, while the glossary is our go-to for definitions of unfamiliar terms. About the poet helps us connect the poet's background to their work, gaining deeper insight. Lastly, contents provide a roadmap of the lesson, ensuring we know what topics will be covered. All these points are interconnected and serve to deepen our understanding of poetry and its themes, guiding us through a comprehensive learning experience. Robin McMaugh-Klein is an Australian author who specializes in writing for children. She has a talent for creating engaging stories that capture the imaginations of young readers. Her work mainly focuses on children's and young adult fiction, which means she writes stories that appeal to a wide age range, from early readers to teenagers. Some of her most famous books include Hatting Allison Ashley, a humorous take on school life, and People Might Hear You, which explores more serious themes. These books have helped establish her as a notable figure in Australian children's literature. Her stories often reflect relatable experiences and emotions, making her work both entertaining and meaningful. Connecting this to our overall theme, her ability to connect with young audiences highlights the importance of understanding your readers when creating impactful stories. On this slide, we see Robin Klein sharing the perspective of a young girl named Amanda. Amanda is constantly being pointed out by her mother for making mistakes. These mistakes, in her eyes, are not just simple errors, but are seen as violations of the societal code of good conduct. It's important to understand that Amanda perceives her actions through the lens of societal expectations, which can often make her feel judged or out of place. This highlights how children can internalize the standards set by adults, and how these perceptions influence their self-esteem and behavior. As we move through this presentation, keep in mind how societal pressures shape the way children view themselves and their actions. All right, let's talk about the different ways people often communicate their feelings and behaviors. On this slide, we see a series of common scenarios where someone might be expressing concern or annoyance, but sometimes it can come across as nagging or overly critical. For example, we hear someone saying, "Stop that sulking at once, Amanda," or "You're always so moody, Amanda." These kinds of comments can make the person on the receiving end feel misunderstood or even resentful. Now notice the contrast with the poetic lines. "I am Rapunzel, I have not a care. Life in a tower is tranquil and rare. I'll certainly never let down my bright hair." This introduces a different tone, more calm, confident, and peaceful, highlighting how a character's attitude can reflect their inner state. The key point here is that communication isn't just about the words we use, but also our tone and attitude. Constant nagging or criticizing, like, "Don't eat that chocolate, Amanda," or "Did you finish your homework?" can come across as controlling or impatient. Instead, understanding when to express concern and how to do it kindly can make a big difference. The poetic lines also show a sense of independence and calmness, like the mermaid or Rapunzel, reminding us that a positive attitude and self-assuredness can be powerful. So overall, this slide emphasizes the importance of mindful communication, being aware of how we express ourselves and ensuring our tone supports rather than hinders our message. It ties into the larger theme of emotional intelligence and effective interaction. Let's take a closer look at some behaviors and their symbolic meanings. First, we have don't be moody and don't sulk. These are about maintaining a positive attitude and emotional stability. To become Rapunzel, she would be happy even in a secluded, prison-like place where nobody could instruct her. This shows the importance of inner happiness and independence, regardless of external circumstances. Next, look in the eyes when being talked to. This is about showing respect and confidence in communication. And don't eat the chocolate. That's a symbol of resisting temptation or indulgence, much like becoming an orphan so she wouldn't have any guardian giving her strict instructions. Then we have keeping the shoes clean and tidying the room. These actions reflect discipline and independence, like becoming a mermaid, where she could live alone in a peaceful place without needing constant guidance. Moving on, finish your homework, stop slouching, don't hunch your shoulders, and don't bite your nails. These are about self-control, good habits, and presenting oneself well. Finally, we see instructions that Amanda did not like, which highlight the contrast between desired behaviors and personal preferences. Overall, these points connect to the broader theme of independence, self-awareness, and how our behaviors reflect our inner states and aspirations. Now let's take a closer look at some of these words. First, we have sulk, which means to be in a moody or sullen state, often as a way of showing displeasure. It's interesting because it reflects how emotions can affect our behavior. Next is nag, which means to scold or criticize repeatedly. It's a word that highlights how certain actions can be persistent and sometimes bothersome. Moving on, tranquil describes a state of calmness and relaxation, something we all seek in stressful times. Then there's bare, meaning naked or without cover, emphasizing simplicity or exposure. Acne refers to pimples, a common skin condition, reminding us of how physical appearance can impact confidence. We also see tidy, which means neat and in order, a word connected to organization and cleanliness. Hush stands for silence or quietness, often associated with calm environments. Inhabitant is someone who occupies a place, like a resident or occupant, highlighting community or belonging. The word orphan refers to someone without parents, touching on themes of loss and care. Languid describes a relaxed, unhurried state, often with a sense of sluggishness. Bliss signifies happiness or pleasure, representing joyful feelings. Soul means single or alone, pointing to uniqueness or solitude. Then we have drift, which is to float or glide gently, often implying a sense of ease. Slouch means to droop or sit in a lazy or careless way, reflecting relaxed or unstructured postures. Emerald describes a bright green gemstone, often associated with richness and natural beauty. Lastly, hunch refers to bending forward, usually as a sign of thinking or feeling tired. Together, these words help us understand different emotions, states of being, and physical descriptions, which are essential for expanding our vocabulary and expressing ourselves more precisely. They connect to the overall theme of understanding human experiences and the richness of language. In this slide, we're focusing on the central idea of the poem's theme. The poem explores the upbringing of a young girl named Amanda, and it highlights the struggles she faces as she tries to find her identity. Robin Klein, the poet, emphasizes an important point. Children should never be denied their freedom. While parents do have a responsibility to guide and nurture their children, it's crucial that they don't make their children feel trapped or deprived of their independence. This balance between guidance and freedom is essential for healthy development. Connecting this idea to our overall theme, it reminds us that fostering a sense of freedom and individuality in children is vital for their growth into confident, autonomous individuals. Now, let's look at some of the key poetic devices that help make a poem more vivid and expressive. First up is allusion. This is when the writer or speaker refers, either directly or indirectly, to a person, event, or thing from history, or to a work of art or literature. For example, in the poem, Amanda imagines herself as mythological characters like a mermaid or Rapunzel. These references help add depth and evoke certain images or ideas in the reader's mind. Next, we have repetition. This is when a word or phrase is repeated 2 or more times. Repetition is often used for emphasis or to create a musical quality in the poem. In the poem, you'll notice words like Amanda or words like don't are repeated multiple times. This repetition helps reinforce the message or emotion the poet wants to convey. Moving on, there's alliteration. This is the occurrence of the same consonant sound at the beginning of closely connected words. For example, phrases like "stop that slouching and sit up straight" or "did you tidy your room" often contain alliteration. It makes the lines more memorable and adds a rhythmic feel. Finally, we have metaphors. A metaphor is a figure of speech where a word or phrase is applied to an object or action to which it's not literally applicable. For instance, in the poem, Amanda imagines herself as a mermaid or Rapunzel. These metaphors help us see her feelings or situation in a new, more imaginative way. All of these devices, allusion, repetition, alliteration, and metaphor, work together to enrich the poem's meaning and emotional impact, connecting us more deeply to the speaker's experience. So let's explore what Amanda could do if she were a mermaid. Imagine the possibilities, swimming freely in the ocean, discovering new underwater worlds, and having a tail instead of legs. It's a fun way to think about exploring different choices and imagining different lives. Next, we consider why Amanda might wish to be a mermaid, an orphan, or Rapunzel. These wishes often reflect her desire for adventure, independence, or perhaps escaping her current situation. They help us understand her feelings and the reasons behind her imagination and dreams. Finally, we see why Amanda is getting scolded for having chocolate. It's usually because she's not supposed to eat it at that moment, or maybe she made a mess. This highlights how rules and boundaries work, and how sometimes small things like chocolate can lead to big reactions. These questions tie into the overall theme of understanding characters' desires and the reasons behind their actions. They encourage us to think deeper about the choices characters make and what those choices reveal about them. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. Imagine I am Amanda. What would be my reactions to these instructions from my mother or guardian? It's important to consider how I might feel, perhaps a bit surprised or curious. Maybe I'd wonder about the reasons behind the instructions or feel motivated to follow through. This connects to our overall theme of communication and understanding within families. It shows how instructions can influence our actions and perceptions. So, when thinking about these reactions, we're really considering the importance of clear and respectful communication. Thank you again for listening.